Hi, I'm Clam, KH7HO. I'm the Section Emergency Coordinator for the Pacific Section, Hawaiian Islands Primary. Uh, so we're trying to get better organized here in Hawaii. We have each island, major or counties, is a district. We have a district emergency coordinator. So Kauai, I'm hoping I have somebody. I have a person. He said he interested, and hopefully he will be my new district emergency coordinator for Kauai. Maui, that includes Lanai, Molokai, and the island of Maui. I have a DEC. For a big island, island of Hawaii, the largest island called Big Island, we have north, south, east, west, and I need to replace
What's
a
that?
person that quit end of last year for the South District. And for the island of Oahu, where I live, we have three districts. We have North Oahu, South Oahu, and I just got a woman that willing to be the DEC for South Oahu and Windward Oahu, where I live. And so right now I have hopefully only one vacancy. For the island, for the state of Hawaii, the DECs are the primary guys I work with. We do not have ECs, emergency coordinators. We have community emergency coordinators who are not required to be ARRL members, and they're delegated by the DEC to assist the DEC. I will be having a first Zoom meeting with our DECs. Have one that reports to me that takes care of the island of Big Island and Maui County. And until I get a DEC for sure for Kauai, he may report to that DEC, that section emergency coordinator directly to me. So using the principle of ICS as a command system, the number of reporting, we're looking at 4 to 7 people. So that's what I'm looking at, a span of control, basically no more than 7 DECs to section emergency coordinator or assistant section emergency coordinator. Um, we are in the process of moving toward more WinLink. We do use FL Digi, NBMS, but we're moving more toward WinLink, especially Vera FM. Thanks to Joe Speroni, our section manager, he was able to buy some cards, basically starting off with the RA25, and now we're using a DRA-30. And we're trying to get the Windward District up and running because there's 3 of us, my DEC, myself, and another um, operator that are more involved with Vera FM. My DEC for Windward Oahu is into HF as well, using Vera HF, and he has a Pactor 4, which, as you know, can only go Pactor 3. We find that the Vera FM is much inexpensive and better to get it out. Most of the people are into VHF, and we have several nodes, we say Vera FM gateways. We have 2 on the Windward side and 5 on South District. We hope to spread it out on Oahu to North. We don't have any in North District. We have in Kauai 3 Vera FM gateway, and Maui has 2. One is a Vera FM, the other one is basically packet. As you well know, Vera FM can also go packet. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on a Big Island, basically east, north, and west. South, which is the big volcano area, do not have a gateway. We do have HF gateway. We have one on the Big Island. more in South District, South East. We have a gateway on the windward side on Oahu. And also we have a gateway for HF on a Big Island. The HF can go also Vera, Pactor, Vera, Ardup, was at Winmore, and most of them have more than one HF band on it. The one on the windward side can go 20, was at 30, 40, and 80. And we have several that can go 20, 15, and 40. And we have, I think, others go on, at least on 40 meter on another one, 20 and 40. So we're looking at, for the upcoming ARES, American Red Cross exercise on May 30th to get more information on that. And I already prepped my DECs about that exercise, and also getting ready for the October 3rd SET 2020. Again, both COMEX will be using WinLink, whichever mode. If they have to use Telnet, we'll use Telnet. The idea is to get the people to use it, and that's what we're moving toward. Any questions?
Yes. Why you need so many stations? Because you have a unique configuration of islands and so on. Why you have to explain, please, why you need so many stations around an island like the Big Island, as you mentioned?
Well, Big Island, first of all, is very huge. You got the two big volcanoes, Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa. So it's separated by distance and by the two big volcanoes. And you have also other volcanoes that separate, and that's how formed the island of Hawaii. So we're encouraging people to use HF. They do have VHF link repeaters, but by using WinLink, they're spread out north, west, east, and we need one on the south. Oahu with 3 islands, there's not many users on WinLink on Maui compared to Big Island, Oahu, and Kauai. And so the gateway is primary on the island of Maui. And again, you know, it's spread by islands. Oahu, we have a huge Kula mountain ridge to separate the west or the east side, the windward side, from the west side and leeward side. And you, on the leeward side, you have the Waianae Range also. And those are the 2 ranges that form through volcanic action the island of Oahu. And we have the North Shore. So the islands are separated by valleys, mountains, through volcanic activity. Kauai is the oldest island, and we have 3 gateways, one on the North Shore, and that's where most of the natural hazards like flooding occur. And you have one in Kapa'a, and then in more in the southwest side. Again, you have mountain range that separate the southwest from the east and north. So that's why we're using more Vera FM gateways, because like I said, most people are using 2 meter radio.
You see guys, yeah, you see guys, what happened in Hawaii is a special case. It's not only that they have 5 islands at least, because they can go in with even 6 islands. They are separated within the island by some hills, quite steep ridges and mountains. And in the Big Island, Hawaii has the highest mountain in the world. It's over 14,000 feet. So that creates a shielding in the island itself. So they have to make like a several loop getting from north, south, west, and east, and also connecting all the islands together with the same similar problem. So they have to double the communication in the VHF and having the high speed and also the gateways in HF just to communicate themselves. So CLEN has a big job, not only in communication. It's not a valley, it's not flat, it's not island to island communication. the barriers of the mountains and hills are quite unique. So you have to deal with all these things and get the proper people and get the whole team together. And this is where Clem doing the beautiful technical work and the support from the section manager, trying these nice toys so they can put themselves together. And they also have automatic gateways, right? That's running 24/7 in looking toward the west coast of the U.S. as well.
Yes. So we have one on Big Island, one on Oahu, and one on Kauai. And thank you, Oscar, Oscar was invited by Joe to come to us to talk about Hurricane Marie last year, and we learned a lot from what happened Puerto Rico, being another island state or territory. We have multi-islands, and we learned from what Oscar went through as a section manager in MCOM for the island of Puerto Rico. So we learned a lot, and we hope we're better prepared. We did some things here by expanding. We have a lot of coastal communities, especially on Oahu on the windward side. And we have people trying to train people in CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. And as a result of teams, we have people want to be amateur radio operators for their teams. So as an example, the Kailua CERT, which I'm a member of, we uses FRS radio for inter-team short distance for about half a mile. And then we also implement amateur radio operators in each team because we have hills and mountains that we cannot communicate using just FRS radio back to our command center, our incident command team. We tried it using FRS in Kailua, and we cannot talk to each other. Yes, in certain areas we can, short distance, but by using amateur radio, we embedded in each team. And also at our operating center, we can talk to the Department of Emergency Management, City County of Honolulu, their EOC, and we can use amateur radio through VHF, UHF, OHF, and use FLDigi. And we hope to implement WinLink also with them.
Back to Ned.
I have a question here. Can you bring up your desktop and bring up the WinLink maps and such and show us some of the paths and where your nodes are located? I also think you're also playing with what I'm trying to say, mesh over there some too. Can you show us a sort of visual on that? I know Oliver's been helping do some of that also.
Okay, let's see. I have to get to. Let me see how I do this. I never did this. I normally have. I know if I have something already up, I can share it, but I have to go on the internet to bring it up. Let me see. You can stand by.
We can stand by.
Okay.
Well, with your permission, while Clem is doing that, let me show you what he talked about real quick in terms of boards. So this is the signal link that I think most of you are familiar with, and a lot of you have. This is the RA board, right? So it has a.
All right.
I'll have to get out and then come back in.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. I'm going to leave the meeting.
All right. Well, we'll see you back. Go on, Oliver.
Let me make a comment here. I don't want to talk in Clem's back. The one of the things that is very interesting is that in the Honolulu, the EOC, it is built inside the volcano. On top of the hill, then you have to cross the wall of the volcano, the crater of the volcano, through a tunnel and get inside. So hopefully the volcano stays down and quiet, but if they get any seismic or volcano activities, the EOC can go immediately, it will fail. So that is quite interesting to have the EOC inside the volcano. So you can imagine. And they use the corona of the volcano to put all the antennas for emergency communication for the government. So
That's
I
kind of
raised my
gutsy.
case.
That's gutsy.
It's the very definition of optimism, right?
Murphy, where are you?
Well,
Well, so anyway, so this is the RA boards, and Hawaii has been instrumental in making these work. And this is the 9600 version of the RIMs that many of you may be familiar with. They're usually used with Alincos. They actually just plug in the Alinco on one side and USB on the other side, and you're up and running.
Can you share those information, those links into the ARES mail, so we can go and instead of searching, we can go and look at it and probably buy a couple and play with it, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be lovely.
And again, the prices on this was $55 shipped. This one, if you don't want to put it together yourself, is $85. And the signal links, you can, if they have a sale, you can pick up for $90. And the other thing that I wanted to add, and that was mind-blowing to us, many of you may already know that, but last Saturday we wanted to do a packet experimentation. Again, we're very VARA FM intensive, but sometimes there's situations where you have to go around a corner. And Clem mentioned sound modem can be run concurrently on a soundboard with VARA FM. They don't talk to each other directly, but it doesn't matter if you run them both at the same time. So what's happened, sound modem UC7HO actually has a built-in digipeater function. And all you have to do to activate that is to go into the initialization file, the ini file, right? And enter your call sign, let's say in my case, K6OLI-4, save it, restart the sound modem, and you've got a fully functioning digipeater on your computer. And it just blew us away because it solves a lot of our problems, because it means everybody with a sound card or with a signal link device and WinLink can become their own field digipeater. That was just phenomenal because you don't have to pre-deploy that. Essentially, you become a mesh network on packet. Just a thought.
Dan, I have an idea. Sorry, today I give you hell. Why we don't create a depository, whatever storage place or whatever you like, a depository, so we at the ARES group can deposit, can put these files and connections and wire connections and what is coming up, the new version of things that they're working. So that way we can share it across the nation.
well, you could do that on the group's IO. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a problem, and that's where majority of everybody's hanging out anyway for the texts and documents and such.
Exactly. And even so, we can, if we do it by section or by state, because I'm sure that there are other people who have this information already made or they're working on it, we can share it and understand why we do things in each region, because each region is differently, maybe flat or very with big mountains, like Clem has the highest mountain in the world. By the way, that's the real definition of it. It's very interesting to go driving all the way to the tip.
That's a good.
Mount Everest, from the base of the ocean, bottom to the top of Mauna Kea. Yeah, we like Vera FM because we have the 9600 baud rate that wide versus the narrow. Narrow is 1200 baud rate. Packet is 1200, which you can move toward as another one, as well as Telnet. So with the three modes, Telnet, as you know, is basically internet. Is very, very fast. I'm really surprised how Vera FM on the wide mode, how fast it is. It's really fast. And for MCOM messaging, where you don't tie up the frequency, even point-to-point, peer-to-peer or point-to-point, radio-to-radio, it's amazing how fast we can pass digital forms like the ICS 213 or the hospital form. And thanks to Oliver, I've been in their Los Angeles ARES Northeast once a week net. And I'm learning a little things there. I really appreciate the invite, Oliver, and that's great. So I'm still learning everything. Every time I come up, I'm learning something. So
Well, that,
I'm hoping I have the what I have, and I hope it's I can share it. Is the Hawaii ARES info website, and you're welcome to come to get to it. And let me see if we can share that. Okay, I hope it comes up.
By the way, the best thing that we're doing here, like Oliver and Clem, is that you can send a message, and you can send a message with 100% real, zero error, and this is very important.
Okay. So on it, on the top left side of the website, have the islands of Hawaii, and I'm just bringing up Oahu. Can you see my mouse there moving around?
yes.
Okay, I live right here, Kailua and Channel Lake area. And this is the Windward District. As you can see from the top of the north of Oahu all the way down to Makapu'u area. So it's a narrow, lot of valleys in between, and we have a lot of coastal communities right along the coastline. And as coastal communities, we belong to a group called Cross Island Community Network, and we share our information with each other with other coastal communities like Ewa, Hawaii Kai out here, Waianae, not sure. This is the North District here of Oahu. Okay, and this is Southern District. This is where most of the population, most of the hams are located here. Most of our hams on the windward side are in Kailua and Kaneohe. They're scattering around here in the various communities. Most of the ham lives in Honolulu, Hawaii Kai, along this route here, this area. We have several hams here. We have hams in Mililani, North Shore, Waianae, Ewa. So that's how we broke it up. And we have repeaters that are, you can see them, that are Department of Emergency Management RACES link repeaters. We have one here. We have one in Kuhuku. We have one up here for North Shore. We have one here for Leeward. We have one at Diamond Head here, above Diamond Head Crater, and one in downtown Honolulu above the Department of Emergency Management Operating Center. We have a state repeater up here for state races, and we have one here on Waimanalo. Unfortunately, they're standalone, and we used to have a repeater on Kauai, Maui, and Big Island for state races, but the links and the repeaters are down right now. So HF is the one that state races have to go and communicate with the neighbor island county emergency management agencies. Any question about this?
I have everybody muted, so be sure to unmute if you want to say something.
And you can go to hawaiiares.info. It's open. What you can see, the resources is you have to be a member to get into the resources where we have the individual members in the various districts. And you can see this map. We have a map of Kauai, Maui, and also the island of Big Island. You can see here we have a South DEC, Raleigh, but he has terminated his DEC end of last year, and we hope to have a replacement. She'll be coming on board as she's a relatively new ham, but she's willing to learn. She's into WinLink FL, Vera FM. So Evan, Oliver, you know Evan, and he's the one that had helped me on some of the exercises. And we have Steve, W86, K86WG, that lives in Mililani. So that's how Oahu is broken down. Now, let me talk about ARES and RACES. Yes, I'm the Section Emergency Coordinator for ARES. I'm also the Assistant Coordinator for State RACES. And I'm also with DM Races. I am the training and exercise facilitator, trying to get them up to speed with exercises like tabletop exercise. We just did one on hurricane, getting ready for hurricane season. And we also did one, I'm sorry, that was last year. We just did one 3 months ago for tsunami. So tsunami and hurricane are our two biggest natural hazard, and flooding, of course, is a third. So all three of them are water-based, what we call H2O hazards. And for the Hawaiian Islands, those are three major natural hazards that we're concerned with. And you can see, because we're separated by islands, by water, by islands, counties, we have 4 counties only. Um, with a population of a little over 1 million people, we have to communicate by HF Nevis, near vertical incident skywave, or using our WinLink communication gateways. So within each island, we can use our VHF link repeaters. If they're down, we can use simplex. We encourage simplex, and we learned that from Oscar. Simplex VHF was the prior means of communication on Puerto Rico. And so we do monthly training, at least once a month, for each district on Oahu to do simplex radio-to-radio communication. And they find out who has a base station, therefore they become the hub. We do have a lot of radio operators, unfortunately, that use handy talkies. A lot of them get into the hobby and buy the inexpensive ball phone, which has, it's great for the hobby introduction, but they have their limitations. So having a handheld versus having a mobile rig that can go 50 watts without good outdoor antenna is the way to go, especially a dual band antenna, and dual band radio. We're encouraging that those can support, especially going to WinLink, Kenwood TMV 71, because of a data port. I have 2 of them, one for my Go Kit and one as my base station. And more hams are on the Windward side who are getting to WinLink are buying that radio and the Vera FM card. So it's we're starting on the Windward side and expanding to Honolulu and the rest of the islands and state. Speaking about the Big Island, a lot of guys are using Vera FM in the east side, Hilo, in the volcano area, especially. And most of the DECs have the capability to go on Vera FM or HF WinLink. So that is good as we expand and show the ARES members the capability, the positive of WinLink. We also encourage them to use FL Digi because it's another digital belt. A tool we can put on a WIT 2 belt. Each has its plus and negatives. So depending on what is the capability, we encourage people to go WinLink because you can use acoustical coupling. Very inexpensive. You don't have to buy any TNC, anything. Just use your acoustical coupling, hook up with your mic and your speaker from your laptop. It's another mode that we encourage. So, but if the bad thing about it, as you well know, you have to have a radio-to-radio laptop operational. The good thing about it, everybody that's into the frequency can get the same message. With WinLink, the email is fantastic. You don't have to have an operating station. It can come up later. And especially with medical type messages with the email capability of WinLink, it's great. It's great mode. Okay. Any other questions before I return back to control to Dan?
Well, I mean, you said WinLink with acoustic coupling. I think you meant FL Digi, right?
Yeah, FL Digi.
Yeah, I can just support that. It works really, really well, especially if you then have the snazzy little cards as well too.
Yeah, that looks like a RDA 30. Is that what it is, Oliver? Yeah. Yeah, that looks like an RDA DRA 30. So very inexpensive, and it's a great, very fast. We use the wide mode, and it's a fantastic. I really encourage it. At least for us, it works, and for Oliver, it works for your group there in LA Northeast. So I don't know who else is using FL Digi or Vera FM. Anybody else using it? Besides Oliver's group at Hawaii?
Yeah, we use it here a lot in the Orange section, at least in Riverside County.
Oh, in Oregon.
No, the Orange section, Southern California.
Oh, Orange. Okay. Okay, Orange County.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Well, hopefully there will be more to it as we go into this and people learn more about it. I will do what I can to get a place for documentation so we can steer people to where to find this stuff. Documents that have links to YouTubes or websites, whatever, to help everybody out. I'll get that information out to everybody as soon as I get that developed and go from there. Is there any more questions for Clem there?
Well, let me make another comment on winlink.org. You can go to the website, and there's what San Diego district or section came out with 24 short 1, 2, 3 minute YouTube videos how to use WinLink, and there's also other YouTubes on the website. So a great start. If anything, download the free WinLink, register, and just use Telnet, just like any other email. Start learning that, and then look at going to Vera FM and using Packet and HF.
I'm not heavy in WinLink because we haven't done it here yet. We're doing it, but not to a great extent. I do have an account on WinLink, and what I have it set up is somebody sends me a WinLink message, whatever meaning it does, it comes to my normal email here at house. I know I don't have to be manning the radio or be actually involved with WinLink to know that somebody has something for me. It just comes through my normal email, then I can choose to get on WinLink or respond back, whatever the situation might be.
A quick comment, if I may. Well, Dan, I think you muted.
Yeah, you may. Go ahead, Oliver.
Okay, thanks. Well, if anybody's interested, but you're more than welcome to send a WinLink email to Jeff W2JCL, who does our weekly WinLink exercises and doing a fantastic job. I know Clem's on there. I know that Evan's on there, and one of the recent developments, and it just goes to show you the teamwork that's going on. Evan actually went onto the group, the Google group for WinLink, and said, given what we just heard, it would be really useful if we could get via WinLink these images from NOAA that show what the development of hurricanes and cyclones is in the area. And the WinLink development team put that on, made that available within 2 days. And so now everybody in Hawaii with a HF connection, even if all the other communications are down, can go and actually download these radar images and just follow what's going on, even if satellite communications and whatnot were compromised. So I think that's a great step in that. And that's kind of from using it, understanding what there is. And of course, I do have to do another shout out to Greg there, who's been absolutely fantastic helping develop us our forms. So the more you use it, the more we at least understand what's going on and what can be improved. And that's been absolutely great. And again, you're more than welcome to participate. You don't have to do the exercise every week, however often you want to, but just to get a feeling. And if you want to repurpose them for your districts or sections, please do so. There's no, we're not saying, you know, just this is proprietary by any means. This is about amateur radio and sharing and saying, hey, listen, if you want to take the scenarios and make them relevant. And I know in Hawaii that they've been working with that as well. And just, we had a zombie apocalypse exercise last year, and it was phenomenal because if you think about it, we're living in the zombie apocalypse right now. So having a virus and so on. So at the time, people thought it was funny. Okay, maybe now it hit closer to home, but we do encourage that the use of that, however you want to do that. So, and by the way, there's a great little link, and I'll just put that in the chat here. If you have a WinLink account, you can actually go to this, oops, let me just webmail. Yeah, you can go to this website, which is on WinLink, and you can actually check your webmail, winlink.org, yep, and you can check your WinLink, and if something's waiting, you can just log in any which way, whether you want to do Pactor, VARA, you want it HF, VHF, UHF, Telnet, Mesh, anything you want to. I usually check on there first because then I know I've got messages waiting, and because I've got to set up every time I want to transmit, that cuts down on my effort. But just keep that in mind. You just log in with your regular WinLink name and account, and that solves your problem right there. And with that, I'll mute myself again.
Out of everybody here, we got what, 19 people on board right now. How many people in their sections have WinLink going at all? Who's playing with WinLink at all in your sections? Hold your hand up. We got
Just
two.
started.
Okay. Are these, I like Greg's, but he's using the thumb thing that we all have available to us. At any rate, yeah, I'd like to see more of us, including my own state, get more involved, not only locally, but nationally. Because as we play with it more and learn the nits and grits and share information, how to make it work, I think that's a good thing. I made a comment on the reflector that I would like to see more sections working outside of their sections, making it, you know, so everybody's getting on the same page. And because I had one person come back and say, well, we're already doing that, but they're doing it with voice communications and that kind of stuff. And that's good. That's part of our tool bag. But I think we need to expand it out to our digital tool bags, the different sources we have. I really am impressed what Oliver and Joel and Clem are doing there in Hawaii. That is impressive. Joel was showing me a map I was alluding to earlier that showed all the different nodes and paths and such, and what they were doing with all the different lobbies relying right now on the internet. But they have to get started someplace, and then they'll move it over. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kim. And then they're moving it into the ARES spectrum now, this type of a thing. But they're doing some marvelous things there. Kim, you got any more comments on that? Them? Yeah, there you
go. Yeah, you can go to the WinLink page and look at the maps. And if you go through, go to Hawaii, state of Hawaii, you can see where we have packet nodes that's tied in with the RF Vera FM, which nodes or gateways have HF, and like AH6HH gateway has packet Vera FM, HF, Vera HF, and all the other Verus nodes on HF is open. So that's a great We have one on Maui, Kauai, and the Big Island. Those are the main ones. So you just can go to the WinLink website and look at tools, click on the map, and click on whichever mode, and it shows you what we have. I know packet is a lot on the East Coast, on the mainland, but not, I don't see that much Vera FM on the WinLink compared to packet. So I was not in the packet mode. I came into amateur radio after the big rah-rah on packet, and now packet is coming back thanks to WinLink and Vera FM. Well, the DRA 30 boards or the RA-25 boards. So it's another means of digital communication. If Telnet doesn't work, we're pushing RF mode of the WinLink to pass our messages forward, because if the internet goes down, Telnet will not work.
I got a comment on packet. We've been using it extensively forever, since the original AX25 stuff. But
Oh, wow.
I find it that we kind of call it security through obscurity. It's become such an obscure mode that it actually is pretty secure anymore. So kind of a thought process there when you're talking about transferring stuff. So when we go to, we utilize it when we get set up in a hospital. Every one of our hospitals has an antenna on the roof for packet and for VHF. We've done that over a numerous amount of years. And so we set up next to the emergency rooms. We're given a space. Sometimes it's not bigger than a closet, but it's a space. And we have portable packet sets that are cached that we can just pick up and run with. They have, including ruggedized printers and everything else. We've made a serious investment in packet. When they ask us to do an emergency shelter somewhere, and you don't know where that's going to be depending on the emergency, we grab a packet, a battery pack. We have a 24-volt deep cycle marine batteries and chargers, and we carry the small packet sets in a case, and the VHF radios, and we can set up any place very quickly and have both a sort of digital well, it is a digital communication, and voice set up rather quickly in obscure places. And all we need to do is make sure we bring an antenna to some of these places without the antennas. But the one thing we've done at the hospitals is we've dealt with their communications people, and they've been very cooperative in helping us get antennas and cables run and a space available next to their emergency rooms. So in case we have to get stuff that we can triage into, we can do that. We also have, on top of that, the ability to give them triage via video from live a digital television that we do by bringing in the monitor and receiver for those, which are also fairly small. So we can set up and be very useful in a real quick way. But we've been at this for well over 20 years to get to where we're at this point. I sent a paper out. I don't know if anybody downloaded it. It was a questionnaire that Dan sent out, and I tried to answer it succinctly enough on a piece of paper. I don't know if anybody got that on the ARRS, this SECIO, but kind of details a lot of different aspects of what we're doing here. You know, we're set up regionally like Hawaii is with one SEC for the state, regions, and then DECs. We have 9 regions and a whole bunch of ECs reporting into those regional ECs. And that's how we operate statewide. So, because we're separated by a pretty good sized area that runs down the middle of the state. They're about 14,000 feet high in places. So, but they make great places to put antennas. So we utilize the hell out of it. Take care.
I think we have a lot of good information. I'm just looking for, I have 3 or 4 different WinLink type hardware devices here, and I can't find them. I'll find them after we get off the session here, of course. That's how it works. What I'd like to do, I'm looking at some of these on the chat of where they don't have it or they have very little of it. We can't, we can bring the horse to the water. We can't make them drink type of a thing, but we can at least, as I send out these videos, I'll send out one of this one tonight and send out others. Forward them onto your ECs, your DECs, that kind of thing. See if we might be able to light some fire to get them interested. It'd be nice. We have more, it's like I say, bring the horse to water. Some of these guys don't want anything to do, especially if it has anything to do with the internet or you name it. But we need to get some of this information out, spread it out. Any other comments on that?
This is Jim in Indiana.
Yes.
Over the past weekend, we did a statewide welfare net. Was done by county. The ECs in the county did a VHF net on voice and then transferred their reports to the DEC, and then it came to me, and we suggested they send it to me via WinLink. In the net itself, not only did we do a welfare status check, but we also looked at who had access to WinLink. And I have to thank Oliver for giving me that idea, because I had no idea how many stations we had in Indiana that were on WinLink. We had about half the counties participate in the statewide net. And out of that, we had 71 stations that had access to WinLink. So I was happy with that. We don't have quite enough gateways. I've got a gateway here in Indiana, or in Fort Wayne, Northeast Indiana, and there's another gateway in the next county over. As far as packet is concerned, we have, I think, 3 HF WinLink gateways, which I can't hit for some reason, and they're not that far away, but conditions have been very poor. But it was very interesting. We had about 1/3 of our registered members participate in the welfare net. And I was very pleased to see how many had access to WinLink. But I am going to suggest that we try and get at least one gateway in each county to improve those communications. And back to you, Dan.
All right. This has turned into a good session tonight. Lots of good information.
I have a question for the group.
Go for it.
Anybody using 60 meters for emergency communications at all?
They're playing with it in Idaho. That's all I know about it at this point.
You know, it's a great, look at the propagation on 60 meters. You know, a lot of us use 80 meters in inverse antennas for typical local. And of course, as the day gets longer and the sun gets higher in the sky, it tends to disappear. We try to go to 40. And 40 is marginal at that particular point. It doesn't have quite enough local communications left in it. So we go to 60. 60 is solid. So that interim period between 40 and 80, try the 60 meters. And I would suggest that your groups tend to look at that. And of course, it's channelized, so it's very simple to get everybody on the same frequency or as part of your communications plan. And anyway, we've been using that, and it seems to work out very well when 80 disappears in the morning. So I was just wondering if anybody else has tried that.
We got one county team in southern New Jersey that's experimenting with it.
Right.
And it's because the county cannot use VHF to go from one end of the county to the other. So they're experimenting with it, and they're going to each shelter location that exists in their county and trying it from each shelter location. So we're we're working in that direction.
That's good. I think it's something we should all keep as part of our toolkit to be able to, you know, because when we have to, like on the Big Island there in Hawaii, of course, they have unique situations. Same with Oscar. 60 could be a good possibility to connect y'all as 80 goes short in the morning.
This is Fred in the Virgin Islands. We utilize 60 meters heavily following Maria and Irma. We had twice daily nets that were attended by responding agencies, everybody from naval personnel on ships to Oscar's nodding his head. He certainly knows, but it does have a lot of those benefits that you mentioned there, Jack.
Okay, good. No, I'm glad you got practical experience. That's super.
Yeah, let me say something. Fred, how are you? When you do the training in 60 meter, say that you're doing the training because those frequencies are real, monitored by the Homeland Security, Department of Defense, and you don't want to blow the whistle like a kind of an emergency. That is a practice, so be aware about that because those frequencies are being monitored 24/7.
Good point. Good point.
Fred, would you be willing to come on and give a talk on what you're doing over there in the Virgin Islands?
Well, we're very, very small. I can give you a quick thumbnail. I don't know that it warrants a whole presentation. We have, in terms of active amateurs, maybe half a dozen or a dozen on HF. And since the storms, we've licensed 75 new hams, which is huge. People have figured out that ham radio is definitely something when you live on a small island like St. John that has a couple, 3,000 people. They have 7 times the average per capita population of hams that you do in the US. In terms of digital stuff, we haven't really had the knowledge base to move forward on any of that. I have had mesh networks up over about a 50-mile link between St. Croix and St. Thomas. Unfortunately, the gentleman who I was doing that with moved away several years ago. One of the new hams happens to be a pretty savvy data guy, and I'm about ready to ship a bunch of equipment over to him, and we'll probably pick that back up. Listening very intently to everything that folks in California are doing. I actually lived quite a few years and was born in La Mesa, lived in the San Diego area, so we know quite a few of those folks. I've come to the conclusion that WinLink certainly has kind of become the de facto standard. I'm learning here there's a number of pipes that you can use for it. I'll try and be diplomatic here, but our EOC doesn't even use web EOC or anything equivalent to it. So that probably tells you kind of how behind the times they are. We have gotten quite a few hams licensed in the hospitals, and probably similar to many other sections, we have the similar challenges of not having any liability or workers' comp insurance. We don't even have an incorporated ham club in the entire territory. So working through a lot of those challenges. By the way, Jack, thank you. I did hook up with Robert Wareham. He helped quite a bit until he had to check out. And believe it or not, through the last call, this is with regard to creating a territory-wide AUXCOM group entity similar to what they did in Colorado here. And in fact, I've been spending more of my time writing draft legislation than I have doing technical stuff. So that's kind of just a quick snapshot there, Dan. There's really not we're in a whole different ball league in terms of complexity, numbers, volumes, so on and so forth. But if you ask just about anybody in FEMA, I think Oscar probably, well, at least for the longer haul stuff, 60 meters was our backbone. And one gentleman very high in the technical ranks of FEMA forecasted that Irma and Maria would be largely an HF event, which it was. So hope that answers your question there, Dan.
Well, it does. I appreciate, I hope, yeah, I'm talking, make sure I wasn't muted. I have to watch Oliver. He's very fast to point out to me. He raises his hand. I know, oh, I'm muted. At any rate, I thank you. That's great, Fred. Appreciate that a lot. That was a quick thumbnail, but it was very good. I think if everything works out, next week we're going to have San Diego on here to give us a presentation and talk. So, and go from there. Well, folks, how are we doing? We're not having an agenda. We've had a pretty good agenda tonight, I think. All right. Well, unless anybody.
How about the subject of liability insurances and workman's comp, like Fred brought up?
Okay.
Most everybody seems to have that particular problem across the nation, and you know, it's depending on your relationships in the state, county, city, whatever you're in, it could be resolved. But anyway, I don't know how many people have it available to them for their organization at this point. Anybody here online?
I do have it available through the Red Cross with a memo of understanding to the Red Cross, but the amateurs of ARES have to be also members of the Red Cross. So they will keep it to do the actually the communication effort, and then they are completely covered by medical insurance, by health and mental treatment and food and shelter. So that's the best I can do.
Yeah, only for Red Cross assignments, right, Oscar?
No, but the Red Cross goes for any emergency. Even now, they're looking for volunteers and they're not deploying. They don't have any deployment, but to keep up the communications. And they were very happy to comply and save the hospitals as well, and the government to support the citizens. So they are very good into getting the proper help to the citizens. So they don't narrow the abilities of the ham to do the best for the communications for them and for the citizens as well. So that's okay.
So would they cover, for example, if you were doing communications solely for the Puerto Rican government, would they cover you under the
When we did it during Maria, and we have the station at the UFO, and we work with the Red Cross, and they actually opposed that, and we were taking care of the hospitals and that directly, and even the small medical centers and the power authority, because even the Red Cross, they would love to fix up the infrastructure, and I do have a note what they told me to have the priorities, and we talked directly. Infrastructure, water, food, infrastructure, because water is the most important part into a catastrophe. Without food, we can survive for 30 days, but without water, we will survive only for 3 days. So again, those are the priorities, and to support the citizens on water, you have to support the whole infrastructure because electricity is involved there, so they can have water as well. So it's you get all tied together.
We ready? Go ahead, Kim. Kim, go ahead.
Okay, let me add, here in Hawaii, we're unique. I was with both DM races and state races before I joined ARES. My background is I retired from State Civil Defense, now called Hawaii Emergency Management, the state DOC. Was there for 12 years. And the thing here is that there's a state law saying that any volunteer organization supporting a county or state organization need to go through a background check and ID check. And therefore, you are now vested, like I'm vested for DM races and state races. And when we get activated, we are covered by liability, not medical. It's your own medical insurance. You got to do that medical. I'm also a Red Cross volunteer, and my role is to help set up amateur radio, shelter radio communicators, which I do with both DM races because they support the Red Cross, as well as using ARES people. Unfortunately, unless you are registered with a served agency, Red Cross, state races, DM, you have no liability coverage. Now, for the hospitals here, we have a healthcom organization, amateur radio, and depending on which hospital they go to, they all have to get a TB check, and they're issued an ID badge for that particular hospital, and they can operate the radios there, whether it's HF or VHF, UHF radio. Most key hospitals, medical centers have amateur radio. On a side note, they use FL Digi. They don't use WinLink. So we're trying to get them to look at the positive side of WinLink as well. But where both state races and DM races encourage dual membership, so that you can come up, even though you're ARES member, you come up and you can support DM under DM races, and you get the liability protection. I know Joe is looking at and checking with ARRL about the liability insurance. Still waiting on that. What I heard, the liability insurance is not that expensive, but my question is, who will be covered under that ARRL or liability insurance? Because I think they need the name of the people. I'm not sure, I'm not an insurance man, but how can you do a group insurance? Well, maybe you can, to show that you are ARES member, and therefore you're protected under that so-called liability insurance. So there's a lot of legal and insurance, and I'm pretty sure ARRL is working on that issue as well. But I don't know all the ramifications.
I wouldn't think about that. I can tell you how I think I could solve that really easy. Is that you have a group, an ARES group, make it a club, a giant club, and all the ARES members can join into it or be part of that club. And you take that club and you use the ARRL liability insurance, and everybody's automatically covered no matter what the club is doing. Well, if the club is out on emergency stuff or is doing practice exercises, then you're covered. And I don't see any reason that they couldn't cover that.
Unfortunately,
Dan, go ahead and
that
speak.
way.
Yeah, hang on here. Dan's been trying to say something. Go ahead, Dan.
I'll let Fred finish, and then I do have something to say, more of a question than.
Okay, Fred.
Yeah, I've actually run the ARRL thing to ground. Risk Strategies is the name of the insurance company that underwrites the ARRL equipment and antenna policies that you can buy as an individual. They underwrite all the ARES associated policies. You have to negotiate each of those individually. ARRL has no piece of it other than just trying to negotiate the best deal for aggregating all these policies together. In fact, they probably get some sort of spiff from it. Unfortunately, Risk Strategies is not licensed to write insurance in the Virgin Islands and has no intent to do so, and has told me that. So when we have things like we have here, our government doesn't even have any paid communicators other than 911 dispatchers. So as an example, we built an EOC, all their comms at the EOC. So our situation's a little different, but that's the ARRL take on it.
We had a complete session on that some time ago, working with ARRL, trying to sort out the insurance thing. It's actually, in my opinion, broken the way it's set up, and we let it drop because now we're waiting for a new ARES manager to come on board. Once we get the new ARES manager on board, we need, as a group, all of us, to bring that back up again, because the actual, as it's set up, well, ARES itself is broke. I think we all know that. But the insurance policy that you're referring to has lots of problems with it. During our last run with ARRL, we actually had them rewrite some stuff on their webpage because it was totally misleading and incorrect. But what they want to do, what the insurance company wants to do is the insurance clubs, and they keep referring to that. Well, clubs and ARES don't really go together for a number of reasons. It's the structure of it. And
activity.
Yeah, so that presents lots of problems, and we need to sort it all out. And like somebody alluded to, that is liability insurance. That covers us if your antenna happens to fall down in somebody's car, you're covered that way. But if you trip and break your leg, you're not covered. And then only the liability insurance, a lot of people have, and they alluded to here, when they're on a disaster or called out or working with the agency, Red Cross or whoever, they are covered. It's when we're working with those, it's during the time that they're exercising, they're practicing, and something goes astray, that's when they're not covered unless they got some kind of liability through however they got it there. Okay, I've said my piece. Dan, go ahead.
First, I should introduce myself, I guess. My name is Dan Zone, WL7COO, recently appointed as the SEC for the San Joaquin Valley section. Fortunately, I'm next to Greg, so he's been a wonderful mentor. And when they ARRL came out with their, making air quotes, strategic plan, which is now sort of nicely just labeled the ARRL ARES plan, I thought that they dropped the boat in two big ways. The name ARES encountered such distrust among emergency managers nationwide that coming up with a new name might or might not have been a better idea. But to have in place the baseline insurance that you get if you happen to be in a county that has a good relationship with the authority having jurisdiction so that everybody signs up as DSWs. The distinction between ARES and RACES goes away. The distinction between ARES and Oxcom goes away. And ARRL could have gained a bigger share of attention from emergency managers by having, say, you complete the EC001 in the 4 core NIMS classes at a minimum, and then you're deployable, air quotes again, and insurable under a ARRL insurance policy. And where the funding for that comes from, my guess is that folks that are truly interested in ARES would pay their share of what a national policy like that would cost. But ARRL's got to get the you-know-what to stand behind it and make that happen nationwide. Because without that sort of would standardize not just qualification, baseline qualifications and integrity. Let me amend that. The 4 core NIMS classes, EC001, and pass whatever background check is going to be deemed suitable. And I don't know if we can get away with less than a federal background check for something that's going to be nationwide. But I think if the section managers can prevail on the division directors to encourage ARRL to consider something like that, I think it'd be a giant step forward in a direction that would encourage recruitment and retaining of the people who are capable of real deployment. I used to be deployable, but now I'm, 3.5 square years old and have other things that I want to spend a lot more time on than going off with a 3-day pack and living off with a 3-day pack. But we need to get the youngsters in that can do that. And one way to do that would be to provide them with basically a basic insurance policy and the training to support the risk assessment. That's kind of a personal thing because I refreshed a 35-year lapsed EMT because I was working with the state agency in their auxiliary communication service. And I was just terrified about a bunch of old.
Well, what you're hitting on here, we're all familiar with. The ARRL and the league, ARES, they're trying to get a new manager in there. I've got my doubts, if you will, what that's going to bring us, but we got some hope anyway. We need to be more structure to it. We need some more leadership from the top down, from the ARRL down.
And focus.
We're in need of a lot of things. We also need to have a voice in what happens. In recent changes, we have not had that voice. They've said that they're listening, but they're not. It goes in a black hole. Many of the directors you alluded to really don't, some of them are not doing anything. They don't, that's another problem we're trying to work on. So on the terms of ARES, we're hoping as soon as this new manager gets on board, we'll see some major changes. Whether that happens or not, is yet to be seen. Okay, Oliver, were you trying to say something there? You had your hand up.
Nope,
Nope.
sorry, it's allergy season.
Ah,
I think Jim WB3 KAS had his hand up digitally, so maybe he has a question.
Dan?
yes,
Not
go
much,
ahead.
not much of a question, but I just wanted to expand on what we did in 2016. We had an SET that encompassed strictly WinLink 2000 and NVIS. And I got to hand it to Greg, KG6SJT, who I have never met, and I'm so glad to have you on board here tonight, that I can say hi to hi face to face. Our two sections are divided by the Potomac River, so to speak. And I asked him if he wanted to take part in our SET, and he did. We had nine people from Virginia and 9 from Maryland. And it was absolutely a fantastic showing of support where we operated 80 and 40 meters around the clock and had wonderful propagation and got to meet a whole bunch of new friends. And for that, I finally found the opportunity to say to Greg, I appreciate your efforts, and hopefully we can do that again sometime. In regard to everybody's ARES races, how it's operated, we have very little contact with the races people in Prince George's County, Maryland. He is in name only, next to no activities whatsoever. But on the other hand, we are very fortunate. We have not had a disaster in the state of Maryland, the likes of what you've had in Puerto Rico, in Southern California, Kentucky floods, Missouri, et cetera, et cetera. And we're finding out that our emergency management and his people don't see our use because it's been so complacent. And in the old phrase, well, it never happened to us and it'll never happen. So thank you very much, Jim. So we spend all our time now supporting 6 hospitals in the county, and that is going very, very well. We're vetted by the hospitals. We have full run of the hospitals up on the roof, down in the basement. That's been a godsend. But what we're very concerned about is if something does happen in Prince George's County, and the government comes to me and says, can you help? Sorry to say, I have to say to them, I'm sorry, sir, all my guys are in the hospitals, because we only have 17 people. That's a sad story, but that's really what it is we're facing with down in Maryland. I look forward to working with this group, this ARES SEC group, long time coming. So we'll turn it back to you in the studio, Mike. WB3 KAS.
All righty. Has anybody else got anything here?
Dan, yes. Oscar. Okay, I mentioned this during the Sundays on the coffee shop meeting, and I'm going to say it again on the Thursday ARES section manager. One of the best things that we have, and I'm going to remind everybody, is that the operators and people with skills are already spread nationwide. We don't have to take people to do the service. They can be the runners, and they know everybody in town, in each of the town that we service. But definitely, they need training. How much training? And this is something difficult to solve, and it can take time, or you can probably will never really get it solved. So one of the approaches to create, and this is what I'm going to tell the guy who comes on board to suggest, that it should be created a special task force of people that can go five people to a catastrophe and get embraced by the ham radio operators of the zone and do the support for emergency communication and train them on the spot and fix things and put things together like the NBIS antenna and the packet communication and the fast tracking equipment. And very soon you can establish within a couple of days, 2, 3, 4 days, communications back in order for emergency communication. And these people are trained and properly set, but we don't do that. But this is similarly what happened with the force of 50, that actually they became at the end 25, 22 plus 3. So these trained people have to be developed by us and have it, as already people said. I have 7 people trained. I have about 15 people trained. I have 5 people trained. So those are the teams that they are actually willing to stand up and move and deploy and go very fast and establish the communication. Then you let the local ham radio to do their business. Once they get the proper information, get the communication running. But that should be something that it could make ham radio amazing to establish communication when things fail. So that's the important part, the 2 items, that we already spread, we have enough equipment around the country, and we need the right training or the right infrastructure development on the spot, and be able to be agile and adapt to the catastrophe. Back to Ned.
Can I add?
Go for it.
Okay. First of all, I mentioned about state races and DM races, and we're vested with the background check and we're badged so that we can go through roadblocks, to the police roadblocks, to whatever assignment we're given. The thing here is most of the guys are also ARES members. And these 2 survey agencies require independent study 100, 200, 700, and 800. And of course, we're trying to encourage our ARES members to also take that, as well as EC001 as a minimum. But being that we're a volunteer organization, we did not join, as ARES, they're not joining a serve agency, which require, whatever you got to do to support that agency as a member. It's sometimes challenging. Some guys don't want to do it. Some guys, are willing. There's guys that are really involved in MCOM and willing to take EC001 and the primary 4 independent study courses that I mentioned. But it's at their own dime and it's free. But the thing here is that these organizations, whenever we activate, we don't really activate as races per se. We activate it and we invite all amateur radio to participate in the net. Because in a community, there might be no communication, and the only one means of communication is a lone ham guy that doesn't belong to any survey agencies, not even belong to ARES, and that's the only means of communication they have from that community. And we will not say, you don't belong to ARES or races, whatever, therefore we cannot accept your communication or your traffic. We invite other people to participate in our exercises and any nets if we have an emergency net, because knock on wood, we haven't really had one on Oahu. On a side note, the worst case disaster is in Iki in 1992 on Kauai. That cost $4 billion in damage, and amateur radio was the only means of communication in the first few days. But Oahu has not had that that type of damage, or the rest of the state. Yeah, we had some president declared disaster, but they were small compared to Uniki. But the point here is that, one of the things we're looking at is what Oscar is mentioning. We, if a ham licensed guy that's not trained but willing to help out, we will look at training them and get them on speed, marry up that individual with an experienced ham radio operator. And that's part of our plan, because we only have about 2,000 licensed ham in the state of Hawaii. Yes, we've been licensing a lot more through VECs, but a lot of them are not trained in MCOM procedure, how to do transmit a message, and we just got to learn on the spot depending on who can show up. And like Oscar mentioned, we're anticipating only 2 to 3% of the hams in a disaster, especially a hurricane, a category 4 or 5 hurricane, will be able to participate and pass MCOM messages. When you look at that, that's a small, small number. Because we will also be impacted as residents if we have a Category 4 or 5 hurricane in the state of Hawaii, especially on Oahu.
I can give you a perfect example of a situation like that. We had a giant flood in 2013. We got 17.5 inches in 2 hours. And we don't get that much sometimes in the county and the other counties. The UCs were all activated. And the one thing we were able to do is put hams on the repeaters. They weren't ARES members, but they were in those towns and they were basically in place and trapped in place. And they became our eyes and ears and our communicators. And they didn't have to be ARES trained. All they had to do was basically give us information, ask us what we needed, ask for us to supply them whatever they thought that their community needed. We asked them if they could meet with anybody else in their communities, and they did so. And they became key and integral individuals, non-ARES trained, non-ARES, just hams, just trapped in place. And I think in every disaster, you're going to find that same situation. So you have to be able to make sure that you utilize who you have, where you have, and it worked out great for us. They coordinated water drops, prescriptions, emergency evacuations, etc., for up to a week in some areas. So, anyway, point well taken there. Very much so, Oscar. Take.
I have to, okay, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, along those lines, if anyone has not seen the training information that DHS or FEMA has distributed for CERT teams, Community Emergency Response Teams, it's obvious that CERT is being taken more seriously than ARES in the upper echelons of the federal government. And I want to back up to Hamvention of 2018. There was an FCC forum there, and they had representatives from either 8 or 9 federal agencies that were involved one way or the other in disaster recovery or emergency communications, including Army Mars and all the, everything, all the agencies in DHS. And the one thing they said they wanted to see amateurs show up with is WinLink capability. And then there was mention made of NVEMS, and I think one other digital protocol that the Army Mars was trying to coordinate on statewide bases. It was an MT11, I think. I don't really remember what it was. That would have to be used on Mars frequencies because it was encrypted at the point of origin and the receiving stations on HF. But opening up and also ARES used to be bound by county boundaries. In other words, if you could only be in your local county's ARES, even if you lived 2 miles from the border and your whole life and all your friends were in the next county over. And seeing those boundaries disappear and in fact trying to help erase them where I'm able to has been real rewarding, as well as acknowledging that faith-based amateur groups, the Salvation Army, and CERT are all welcome to participate. Is the only way that we're seeing any new blood get involved or interested with ARES in the rural mountain areas of Central California. And, I live in probably the second lowest population density county in the state of California, which is only 12 people per square mile. And how do I say it? Well, I'll just leave it at that. I think opening up ARES to include all amateurs, as was suggested, and trying to encourage them to take the free online independent study so they'll understand all the lingo about the incident command system and national incident management system. um, will go a long way to helping with the recruitment that we desperately need. And I don't see that. The gentleman from Maryland and D.C. I lived in Prince George's County, Maryland, and went to school in Anne Arundel County, Maryland, across the street from the Naval Academy. And there's not a lot of young amateurs getting involved that will have the capabilities to deploy from wherever they are to Puerto Rico and do it reliably and safely and with adequate training. And I think that's where our focus really needs to be. And it's clear, it was clear to me in 2018 that WinLink, it was clear to me that I had to learn WinLink for the third time and actually start making use of it on a regular basis when I heard that 1 hour symposium on YouTube.
One comment, and that is, you know that you do not need to be an ARES member to be a part, ARL member to be a part of ARES. Only if you're leadership, if you're EC and above, is that required.
Understood, but we are requiring for an EC 001, and I think we have to have some minimum reliable standards to claim that we have ARES mutual aid team capability for deployment. And so that, we're imposing a lot on volunteers by saying you got to do these 4 classes and you got to take the EC 001, which, God bless the ARRL, is about 1,000 times better than it was 20 years ago. And I wish they would just do away with the 016 until they fixed it, because I've never heard anybody complete it and say it was worth the time. And back then it was a 002, which was just a continuum from the 001.
Dan,
Yes, Oscar.
we need the runners. Those are very important people. It doesn't matter who they are. They could be CV, they could be GMRS, they can be FRS, they can be ham radio with Baofan. We need those runners. So those are important facts, important people. We need to train some people to get that information to the proper authorities. But the majority of the people are going to be runners. So we need everybody. And this is something that we have to structure properly. How many, make a pyramid kind of a structure, that how many runs on the grounds, like Fred said, hands on the ground. Those are the people that knows the priest, that knows the mayor, that knows the doctor, that knows somebody in the administration of the hospital, and get the information to the proper transmitter, let's say emergency ECO with the ham radio, and get that information to the proper authority so they can get help. But those runners are very important.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I've never seen a disaster yet. The disasters, somebody said it last week, or I think it was Oliver, but anyway, they're almost always local, and then they grow from there. And so you need people that know the local area, and a lot of times that is the runners. A lot of times it's a whole different communications group. It has nothing to do with amateur radio. All of a sudden you need to interface them in some way or another. Okay, Bob, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I always encourage, I refer to them as the lone wolf operators. The guy that can't get out of his house on a normal basis. He can tell us what's happening in his neighborhood. Mm-hmm. No one else does that. And I always refer to ARES as being the boots on the ground, week of communications down to the last mile. No one else does that. RACES doesn't do that. State ACS doesn't do that. We do that because we're there. We don't have to be activated. When something cool happens, we turn around, turn on the radio. Hey, man, I'm activated. And I think that kind of goes back to the liability thing. You can't cover anybody's liability just because they turned on the radio.
Well, it's a multi-structure type of thing. Most EOCs, and what am I trying to say here? What they do, sheriff's office and stuff, they'll have a mixture of RACES, sometimes other groups, and then the ARES people, and they get to know them. They work with them, and that's their core people. And that's great for when they, on a day-to-day basis, but when an actual emergency hits, they have to have more. And that's where you reach out, and that's where the untrained runners come in. They need to be able to go out there and and tell somebody, you know, the river is now peaking, or whatever the case might be. They don't need to take a dozen courses to be able to tell us the basic information. Okay, Greg, see ya. Bye there. These are all things that we're losing people like flies. They're just dropping out. This has been a long meeting, very informative meeting. I appreciate all the information. I think I got my facts straight. Hopefully we'll have San Diego on next week, and they'll give us a more run in. You hear a lot more about WinLink there because they're big into that. So anyway, hi, we'll let everybody go unless somebody's got some more. Okay, go ahead, Cliff.
Yeah, I want to add to Dan's comment. Recently, I am a cert instructor with the Department of Emergency Management, Sydney County of Honolulu. Been teaching cert since 2012, and we noticed that people after taking cert, they're interested in communication. We talk about FRS radio, but you know it has a plus and minuses. So we tell them get amateur radio. So our growth I've seen is people that have taken cert are now getting the amateur license, and they tend to be younger, you know, 45 and below.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us I see on our video here, we're, you know, the senior citizen of the group. But we, like was mentioned, we need to get the younger generation, the younger people more involved in MCOM and aperture radio. And one way to do that is through CERT, having them join us community CERT group or neighborhood CERT group and be the communication person for that group. So, and also to join the Department of Emergency Management City and County Honolulu RACES, you have to take a CERT class. So that's another requirement of a serve agency for amateur radio communication. So I encourage the ARES people in Hawaii to also take CERT because it prepare you how to, you and your family first, how to, about the various disasters that we can be facing in Hawaii and what to do, especially with COVID-19. You know, we tell people in Hawaii to have a minimum of 14 days food and water. I'm telling them, and the CERT national program says 3 days. In Hawaii, you cannot do 3 days worth, right, Oscar? So I'm telling them officially in Hawaii, we're telling them 14 days, but if you can't afford and have the space, go for minimum 30 days. So we practice all hazards. So COVID-19 is considered one of the hazards. If you're prepared with food and water for 30 days and you're sheltering at home, that's what we're doing in Hawaii, sheltering at home, don't go out, you're good. So it ties in with what's happening here in Hawaii right now. And I'm glad I came up and met Oscar again and several other people. I would like to make contact with Fred, with Virgin Island, and with some of the other people. I think the other one was mentioned that I think does the WinLink Farms. Was that K7? No. I forgot who did the forums here. I got it somewhere. Gee, I put a note here and I can't remember. I think it checked out already.
It was KG6 SJV, I believe.
Okay, I want to make contact with him. Gee. Anyway, to learn more about having some farms for Hawaii, WinLink farms. So anyway, it's almost 2 hours. I thank you for the opportunity to meet the other people on this Zoom meeting. And thank you. And I'm learning every time I come up, I'm learning, and also in WinLink, thanks to Oliver.
We're all learning. It never ends. We're all learning, and we can share amongst ourselves to help ourselves. Okay, this has been the longest one I think we've had as far as a Zoom meeting goes. I will be sending out a link to the video to this, so if some of your memories are like mine, you can look at the video and fast forward till you get the names or call signs that you're looking for. Is there anybody else that's got anything here? Everybody's being quiet, and those that had to go are already bailed out. So, okay, I'm going to say 73s, everyone. We'll go on to the groups IO and see if we can make a spot for documents and such, and I'll put out a thing how to do that. I know we can. I just got to figure it out and then share so that we can get some of this documentation out there, especially the how-to stuff and links and so forth. Okay, I will say 73s unless somebody's got something more. All right, 73s, everybody. Have a good evening. Stay safe.
73s.